Hey everyone, I wanted to give you guys some feedback based on the Nutrition Facts Panel discussion forum that you've completed. If you take a look at your Moodle gradebook, you'll see that your grade is entered for the Nutrition Facts Panel discussion forum. I've also provided some feedback within the actual discussion forum. I may have replied to your post or replied to a response, either on the discussion forum or privately. So you can see some feedback as to why you got that specific grade, and also just I engaged in some of the conversations that you had. So a few pieces of feedback for the whole class that I wanted to share is that some of you guys gave some great discussion posts about the nutrition facts label. I can tell that a lot of you really thought about some of those differences that you saw between the old and the updated version of the label, and really thought about how that impacted consumers, whether good or bad. So just some feedback for the class as a whole. Be sure to always go beyond just answering the prompt questions. So you'll notice that on the discussion forum rubric, there are a few different tiers for your post and the grades that are associated with them. So if you just answer the prompt cut and dry, yes, no, you'll get a lower grade than if you go a little bit further by explaining your answers to the prompt a little bit deeper. So always go beyond answering just those prompt questions and go beyond statements of agreement in your responses. So a statement of agreement is, this is a great idea, or I agree with what you said about XYZ. Instead, I want you to say why you think it's a great idea. Why do you agree with that statement? It could be because if you agreed that the update on the label was a positive change, tell me why you think that was a positive change. Do you think that consumers being able to see the serving size or the calorie content more clearly is going to help them make better choices and maybe help with weight management or controlling their diabetes? So go beyond just statements of agreement and tell me why you agree. A good idea is to, before you submit your response, ask yourself the question, would the person be able to respond to my response? Will they be able to engage in conversation based on what I have said to them? So you should always be responding in a way that promotes further discussion or analysis of the topic. So a few things about what you guys picked out about the nutrition label, which I've got pulled up here on the screen. You can see the original label and the updated version on the screen right now. And the things that I want to pick out are the drastic differences in the bold coloring and font size of the new label versus the old label. So to me, this is a great thing for consumers because at a glance, you see those really important pieces of information without really having to focus and look at it really, really closely. So calories and the serving size are much larger here, and that shows how important it is to see the serving size when you're looking at the calorie content. Because if you eat more than what's in that serving size, say there's 8 servings in a container, and you eat all 8 servings when a serving size is only 2/3 of a cup, there's going to be way more calories that you've consumed. So being able to see that more clearly, I think, is incredibly beneficial to consumers. So the next big thing that I see is that this calories from fat isn't visible, as well as this table down here that shows the 2,000 calorie diet versus the 2,500 calorie diet, and the recommendations for grams of total fat and saturated fat. This was excluded, as well as the calories from fat were excluded on the updated version of the label. To me, this isn't an omission of information, but rather we are focusing on what's really important for the specific food product. So when the food label originally was created, fat was seen as was viewed as a macronutrient that very much needed to be eliminated or consumed in very small amounts. But as nutrition research has developed, we have seen the true importance of fat as a macronutrient in the diet and in human nutrition. So we think that overall calories, is more important for the consumers to see and understand versus the calories that are coming specifically from fat. So this, again, isn't so much of an omission, but helping consumers to see what's really important right then and there. So the next thing that I see is the addition of added sugars. And this has been a long time coming, still some kinks in rolling this out. But you'll see on many food labels, you'll see that the added sugars row is added. So this helps consumers, of course, to consume less added sugars or be more aware of the added sugars that they are consuming. And the true reason that this was done is because now the dietary guidelines for Americans have put a recommendation for an upper limit on the amount of added sugars that we consume. So the current recommendation is to consume less than 10% of our overall calories from added sugars, which is about 200 calories if you're consuming a 2,000 calorie diet. So being able to identify how many or how much of the daily value is coming from added sugars can really help you to understand if you're over consuming added sugar specifically. So this is a big change. We know now that carbohydrate quality is very important. So whether it's providing more added sugars or more fibers, a carbohydrate is going to be metabolized very differently in the human body. So added sugars is a great change. Okay, and then the last big change that I see here is this this bottom area for our micronutrients. So now we see vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium, whereas on the original food label we saw vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron. So the point of this is that the updated label is addressing nutrients of concern. So our nutrients of concern is what more recent data has suggested that Americans are under consuming. So the whole purpose of the nutrition facts label is for consumers to be able to see the nutrients that are most important to their diet and to hopefully consume the correct amounts. Okay, so not to overconsume, but also not to underconsume. This area right here is really focusing on those micronutrients that we know directly impact human health that most people are under consuming or aren't consuming adequate amounts of. So it's not that vitamin A and vitamin C, calcium, and iron that vitamin A and vitamin C aren't important in the diet, but typically people are consuming at least somewhat adequate amounts of these, whereas vitamin D and potassium we know are not being consumed in adequate amounts. So that's why this change was made, to help people see the content of these foods that they can hopefully increase the amount that they eat. So just wanted to give those few pieces of feedback. I think overall the discussion was very interesting to read, and I was excited to see that some of you really gave it some in-depth thought and conversation. So hopefully this was a good help to hear from me and see what I see on the food label so that you can better understand some of the things that your classmates were saying. So if you have any questions about this assignment or about this grade, you can shoot me an email at allison.gobert@nichols.edu, or you can send me a Moodle message and I'll be able to respond through that.